Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Martin Richardson will soon face the most devastating consequences yet in the long shadow left by Kenny's death. The storm begins not with violence, but isolation. In a matter of days, Martin finds himself ejected from every place he once called home. He doesn't even have the luxury of denial anymore. The walls are closing in. The first fracture erupts with Bradley "Smitty" Smith, Martin's closest friend and longtime roommate. Smitty confronts Martin late one night after a terse phone call from an anonymous source. The confrontation isn't drawn out. Smitty's voice is low but firm. "You lied. You let us believe you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But you weren't. You pulled the trigger." Martin doesn't deny it. There's no point. Smitty tells him to pack his things. Martin leaves without argument. Samantha and Tyrell arrive not long after. They try to convince Smitty to reconsider, but he won't budge. Not after what he knows. Not after learning Martin had a direct role in Kenny's death and kept it buried for so long. Samantha tries to reason. He didn't do it with malice. He panicked. But Smitty counters, and then he kept lying. Every day since. With no home, Martin drags himself to the one place he thinks might take him in, the house of his parents, Vernon and Anita Dupree. But the moment he arrives, Samantha and Tyrell are already there, and Smitty has told them everything. Vernon tries to defend his son, but it's weak, fractured, haunted by guilt. Anita doesn't speak. Her silence hurts more than any words could. Samantha, now reeling, stares Martin down. "You let us stand beside you. Defend you. And all this time you knew. You were part of it. You watched us fall apart trying to find answers you already had." Tyrell adds, coldly, "You didn't just lie to us. You betrayed us." There is no argument to make. Martin doesn't try. He leaves. No destination. Just the road. The days that follow are murky. Martin wanders the outskirts of town, a ghost drifting between abandoned parks, closed diners, and cheap motels he can't afford. With each hour, the weight of his past sharpens like a blade. He has nowhere to go, no one left to protect him, and a growing realization that prison isn't the worst fate awaiting him. That fate reveals itself one evening as Martin steps out of a gas station. The streets are empty. The air feels wrong. He senses something or someone watching. Before he can process the instinct, it happens. A figure in a black cloak moves fast, surgically, deliberately. A flash of silver. Pain erupts in his abdomen. The world tilts. Martin collapses, gasping. His eyes lock onto the attacker's face for just a moment. He recognizes her. The features are faintly familiar. Too familiar. It's June. She doesn't speak. She disappears into the darkness as quickly as she came, leaving Martin bleeding on the concrete, sirens now echoing somewhere far off. But Martin knows. It wasn't random. It wasn't robbery. It was justice, the kind that doesn't wait for courtroom decisions. The kind that lives in grief. Paramedics arrive minutes later. Martin is unconscious, but clinging to life. The stabbing is classified as a critical assault. Police swarm the scene, but find nothing conclusive. No DNA. No weapon. No eyewitnesses. Vernon is called first. Then Anita. Neither rushes to the hospital. Samantha and Tyrell do. Samantha sits by Martin's bedside, looking at the broken man he's become. For a moment, she sees the boy she grew up with. The laughter. The innocence. The promise. It all feels so far away now. She turns to Tyrell. If he dies, we never know the full story. We never know what really happened to Kenny. Tyrell nods. But if he lives, does he finally tell the truth? Or does he keep hiding it? Detectives begin their investigation, piecing together surveillance footage, interviewing gas station clerks, checking nearby businesses for leads. Nothing points to June. But that's because they don't know who June is. They don't know she's Kenny's biological mother. They don't know she came back to Elbridge after years in hiding. They don't know she sat in the courtroom the day Kenny's case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. They don't know she watched Martin walk free. June had been waiting. Watching. Planning. She had followed Martin for days, blending into the background. No one remembered her face. No one knew her name. But she knew everything. She knew where he slept. Where he ate. Where he lingered late at night with his thoughts and his guilt. She didn't want him arrested. She wanted him to bleed. The media speculates endlessly. Was it a revenge attack? A gang-related incident? A mugging gone wrong? Police theories run in circles. Only one person begins to suspect the truth. Samantha. She remembers a woman at Kenny's funeral. A stranger standing at the edge alone. She never spoke. Never approached. Just stood silently before vanishing. She starts digging. She cross-references guest lists, obituaries, visitor logs at the hospital. Finds a name, June Allen. The pieces click. She brings it to Tyrell. If she did this, she won't stop. She wanted Martin gone. She wanted payback. But what happens next? Who else does she think is responsible? Tyrell exhales slowly. Then we find her before someone else ends up in a hospital bed. They don't tell the police. Not yet. Because they don't know if they want to stop her. Martin survives the night. Barely. When he opens his eyes, Samantha is there. Not holding his hand. Not smiling. Just present. He tries to speak, but she stops him. Don't say anything. Not until you're ready to say everything. And he knows he will have to. Not just for Kenny. Not just for himself. But because somewhere out there, the woman who nearly ended his life is still watching. And she isn't finished. The hospital room where Martin Richardson lay recovering became more than a place of healing. It was a sanctuary of silence, regret, and waiting, but not just his own. Word of the attack had reached every corner of Elbridge. Most people whispered questions about justice or karma. A few asked if Martin deserved it. He didn't speak for 3 days. When he finally did, the first name he said was June. Samantha sat beside him, her expression frozen. You remember her? Martin nodded weakly. She looked at me like she already knew what I was going to say. Like she wasn't afraid of anything. Samantha leaned in. Then it was her. Kenny's mother. She did this. Martin shut his eyes. The pain in his side was manageable. The pain in his conscience was not. She wanted me dead. But why now? Martin didn't answer. Not because he didn't know, but because he did. He remembered the night Kenny died in a way he had never spoken aloud. Kenny had begged him to go public, to tell the truth. But Martin had already crossed the line. He helped Vernon cover it up. He let his guilt ferment into silence. He watched the family unravel and said nothing. That silence had finally come to claim him. Outside the hospital, Tyrell paced. Samantha filled him in. We need to find June, she said. Before she tries again. How? She disappeared after the funeral. No digital trace. No known address. Samantha opened her phone. I have a theory. There was an old friend of Kenny's, someone he used to write letters to while she was away. June might have used that address. Tyrell raised an eyebrow. You're thinking she was hiding in plain sight? No. I'm thinking she was waiting. They drove 2 towns over to the rural edge of Watson Creek. A rusted mailbox, a dirt driveway, a house hidden behind a crumbling tree line. No sign of movement. No cars. Just quiet. They knocked. No answer. Tyrell circled to the back. A shed. Locked. But through the window, something glinted. A knife. Back inside, Samantha found mail stacked in a pile. Most were junk flyers. One was addressed to June Allen. She was here, Samantha said. They handed everything over to local authorities. But they knew it wouldn't be enough. June had already vanished again, likely with new clothes, a new name, maybe even a new town. But she wouldn't stop. She had come too far. Martin left the hospital under police escort. He was placed in protective custody, but he hated the idea of protection. He wanted confrontation. Maybe even punishment. Something to break the spiral. And then came the letter. No return address. No fingerprints. Just one sheet of paper. You lived. That means you still owe him the truth. Start talking. He brought it to Samantha. She's not running from us. She's forcing me into the open. She wants me to confess, to make it public. She wants me to bleed in front of the whole town. Then maybe that's what needs to happen, Samantha replied. Not for her. For Kenny. Martin nodded. The following week, he scheduled an interview. Live. National. A journalist known for cutting through spin was granted access. Martin told everything. The night of the killing. The cover-up. Vernon's role. His silence. The fear. The manipulation. The shame. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He only gave the truth. The fallout was immediate. Vernon Dupree was arrested. Anita filed for separation. Protesters lined the courthouse. Samantha and Tyrell gave separate statements, distancing themselves but affirming their support for the truth. And June? She watched it from a borrowed motel TV, somewhere off Route 73. She turned it off halfway through. Because in her mind, Martin's truth wasn't enough. Kenny wasn't coming back. Justice still had a hole in it. She left that night. Disappeared again. But the story in Elbridge was no longer hers to control. Martin remained in custody voluntarily. He was charged with obstruction, conspiracy, and accessory after the fact. He accepted every count. Before his trial, he wrote one letter. It went to June. I can't ask you to forgive me. I can't fix what I did. But I will carry it now. Every day. That's the least I owe your son. And to you. He didn't know if she read it. But he sent it anyway. At sentencing, the judge called Martin's case a tragedy of silence, fear, and generational rot. He was given 10 years with parole eligibility in 5. Not everyone agreed with the sentence. Some thought it too light. Others saw it as a start. Samantha and Tyrell visited him once. He didn't ask them to come back. They left in silence. Outside the prison gates, Samantha stared at the sky. I hope June finds peace. Tyrell didn't answer. But he hoped it too. Because sometimes truth was the only justice left. And even when the story ends, the scars still echo. Time passed quietly after the trial, but Elbridge never truly settled. The town moved with a new caution, like it was holding its breath. Martin Richardson's name still lived on the lips of those who remembered, but not with "Hey more" with discomfort, as if speaking his name acknowledged the uneasy truth that justice had come at a brutal cost. Martin adjusted to prison life with the solemnity of someone who knew he belonged there. He didn't fight for special treatment. He didn't ask for visitors. His days were marked by routine books, letters he never sent, moments of silence that he welcomed more than anything else. But silence has its own gravity. Each night, Martin dreamed of June. Not always her face, but the feeling of her presence. Not the knife, not the blood, but the weight in her eyes before she struck. There was no rage in those dreams. Only sorrow. Only finality. And then one morning, a letter came. No return address. Inside, a single sheet. You didn't die, so don't waste it. That's all. There was no signature. But Martin knew. The handwriting was sharp, familiar. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. A demand to live the burden, not just survive it. Martin folded the note, tucked it into the back of his journal, and said nothing to anyone. Not even his court-appointed therapist. Across town, Samantha had started volunteering at the Community Outreach Center named in Kenny's honor. It was quiet work, mostly helping young adults write resumes, apply for housing, find their feet. She didn't talk much about what had happened. People knew not to ask. Tyrell had thrown himself into advocacy. Reform. He worked closely with journalists who were still unraveling the history of how Elbridge's justice system had failed people like Kenny. Tyrell's voice was calm but sharp, full of conviction. He wasn't campaigning for revenge. He was demanding prevention. And Vernon? He had pleaded guilty. No trial. No spectacle. Just a quiet, resigned acknowledgement of what he had done. Anita filed for divorce the week after his sentencing. She moved out of Elbridge entirely. No one blamed her. But it was June who still haunted the story. No one had seen her since she fled. Her face showed up in a few grainy surveillance frames in Arizona, then in Texas. But she never stayed long. Authorities couldn't pin a location on her. Some speculated she died in the desert, or changed her name again and slipped into another quiet life. Samantha believed otherwise. She thought June was still watching. When the 5th anniversary of Kenny's death approached, Samantha organized a vigil in the park. She didn't want speeches. Just a gathering. Candles. Photos. Quiet music. She invited anyone who wanted to come. Martin, still in prison, sent a letter. It arrived just hours before the vigil. To Samantha, it read, "There are no words that fix anything. I've learned that. But I need you to know this isn't the end of what I owe. When I get out, I'll spend every day earning the space I take up. Not to make you or Tyrell forgive me, but because it's the only way I can keep Kenny's name clean. He tried to stop me. That's the truth. I didn't listen. But I hear him now. I hear him every day." Samantha didn't cry reading it. She just placed the letter under Kenny's photo at the vigil. Tyrell noticed. He didn't say anything. But later that night, as the candles flickered and people slowly left the park, a woman stood at the tree line, just beyond the reach of light. Samantha felt it before she saw her. She turned. Their eyes met. June hadn't aged much. She wore simple clothes, hair tied back, posture still proud. She didn't step forward. She didn't speak. Samantha took one step in her direction. "You're not a ghost," she said. June gave a faint smile. "Neither are you." They stood there in silence. Finally, June asked, "Was it enough?" Samantha shook her head. "Nothing ever is. But it was something. And that matters." June nodded. "Then I can disappear for real." "You already have," Samantha replied. "Now maybe it's time to come back." June looked away. "This place wouldn't welcome me. Not yet. But maybe someday. And maybe not for them. Maybe for you." They didn't hug. There was no embrace. Just understanding. Mutual grief. Shared loss. Then June walked into the trees. And vanished once more. A few months later, Martin was granted parole. It wasn't a celebration. No cameras. No crowds. Just one duffel bag and a ride arranged by the state. He stepped out into open air for the first time in years and just breathed. He didn't go back to Elbridge. Not yet. Instead, he enrolled in a counseling program in another town. Spoke to kids about guilt. About choices. About silence. Never once using his name. He wasn't interested in redemption. He was building something else. Samantha heard about it through a mutual friend. She didn't reach out. But she smiled. Because maybe this was what June meant. Maybe surviving wasn't the end of it. Maybe surviving was just the start of making it right.